Hey everybody, it's Erik Torenberg, co-founder, partner of Village Global, a network-driven venture firm. And this is Venture Stories, a podcast covering topics relating to tech and business with world-leading experts. Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Village Global's Venture Stories. I'm here today joined by my co-host Ian Cinnamon and a very special frequent returning guest, Jeff Morris. Jeff, welcome back to the podcast.
Thank you. I'm honored to be invited back. I feel like every time I come on, I'm not sure when you're gonna cut me from the show, but but I made the cut once again. So here we are.
Welcome back. We've had the pleasure of doing a number of deals with you, Jeff, including Rome, including Wonder, Spot. Most recently, on this latest fund, you've decided to go all in on Web3. Trace that evolution and when you decided to say, hey, it's time to go all in here.
Yeah, I think going back to when I started Chapter One, I had done a lot of crypto through a scout fund with Index Ventures. In 2017 was one of their crypto scouts, and I raised fund one in 2019, and so it wasn't a time to raise a crypto fund as a first time GP, and a lot of my early investments in Dapper Labs and the Graph and Compound Finance had not broken out yet. And so I didn't have a track record to go raise fund one as the crypto fund. And I was a solo GP. I really thought about the next 10 or 20 years of Chapter One and where I thought consumer technology was going and where we could be hyper competitive. And there's this moment in time right now. It's like the great unshuffling of venture capital where if you're starting a new fund from scratch and you're doing it within crypto, you can really become a very competitive brand really quickly if you commit. But you have to commit, and if you hedge, then you should probably not be doing crypto at all. And so we thought about making that jump, and I started to hire a team, and everybody around me was joining Chapter One because we were committed to crypto. And we just found that we were being a lot more thoughtful with hiring. We could hire better people. And we also kind of identified what we think was, I guess, like a mission and vision for Chapter One that we thought was important in crypto, which was to make crypto more user-friendly, more accessible. So kind of the stars aligned, and we're 10 people now. We've hired people who are coming from really top-tier backgrounds in both Web2 and Web3, and kind of we're all converging on this idea of trying to build a fund that helps build better products, and that can be products, it could be communities, but it's really trying to make crypto more simple and user friendly because crypto right now is a pretty small ecosystem outside of crypto Twitter and kind of the areas we hang out in.
And to go deeper on you personally, Jeff, was there a single moment where you effectively took that red pill or you really felt like I'm personally all in on crypto? Or I guess we could ask the other question, are you personally beyond just the fund all in on crypto as well? Are you a true believer?
I am a true believer. I've really bet my entire career on crypto at this point. So yeah, when it happened for me so we were selling digital products at Tinder, a la carte items that were digital assets that did have scarcity because they were we priced them to be kind of like for 10% of our users to be able to purchase. We like constructed our ecosystem at Tinder in a way that made those digital goods scarce. And I bought my first crypto kitty in 2017, and it was one of those moments in the office where I told people I bought a crypto kitty, and literally I got like laughed out of my pod in the office. But then I met Roham and kind of dug into digital ownership more. And it just felt like we were doing subscriptions at Tinder in addition to a la carte. And it just felt like digital assets were the next evolution of subscriptions. And when you look at Web 1 and Web 2, kind of Web 2 is dominated by obviously the ad model and then subscriptions. And then now we have Web 3, which I think is it's just a better business model for the community and also for creators. And so I kind of think of subscriptions in Web3 as just being like liquid subscriptions that accrue value over time, and you can like churning out of a community is actually potentially a very financially lucrative event, where if you compare that to churning out of anything in Web2, like if you were to leave Tinder, you would just like leave and you earn nothing from all that work you put into to being a member of Tinder. And so it's a very simplified view of what is happening, but I think it kind of just felt like the next great business model.
Talk about the differences between Web2 consumer and Web3 consumer. We haven't had a ton of Web3 consumer breakouts yet. You of course worked, led product at one of the biggest Web2 apps of Tinder of all time. What are the things that you're excited about for Web3 consumer, and what are the things where you say, you know what, Web2 is just going to do that better, if there are elements of it?
Yeah, I think Web3 consumers are really eager and motivated to do anything in crypto, because crypto is just so freaking hard to interact with. And so there's a high level of intellectual curiosity, a willingness to experiment, and just like a belief that everything will eventually come together in a really cohesive way, where the products will be on par with Web2. I think where I kind of see the biggest gap in crypto right now is actually with mobile being just almost unavailable if you're a crypto consumer. A lot of that's because of the App Store and Play Store policies, but there's very little execution layer activity happening within crypto. It's kind of sad because I believe that mobile is the best way to build amazing products, and you just don't see a lot of crypto on your phone. In terms of other areas, I think community-based products are the most interesting part of crypto, where I think we thought of community in Web2 as being like this. It's like you join a community and maybe you kind of vibed with the people through like mediated through the company. So you had a community manager who would kind of help facilitate some IRL communication or some like physical presence events where you could meet people. In crypto, it's just become, communities have taken on a life of their own. I went to a Zuki party in LA, and there was it was on Los Angeles at Nightingale, which is like the hottest nightclub in Los Angeles, and there were police escorts. There were lines down the road. I've never seen that at anything in Los Angeles. It felt like there was probably like a Justin Bieber record release party going on inside, and just that amount of enthusiasm for being a part of a digital community, I think is really, really fascinating. We've saw it with Links DAO. Crosshouse is another one of my favorite DAOs, where they want to buy an NBA team together, and you kind of create this aspirational goal, but that's not the point. Like, it's more joining a community of people who really care about something as like early adopters in a way that doesn't exist in Web2, because Web2 doesn't allow the same ownership and community coordination that Web3 enables. So yeah, there's so many things I'm excited about, but I would say the intersection of community and product, I think, is probably what's most interesting to me.
So to rewind for a second on the first point you made on mobile, before we go deeper on the community and product, on the mobile side, if you look at kind of what's out there right now, you have like MetaMask, which has the mobile app and the built-in browser, and that's subpar to say the least. Do you really feel like the biggest hurdle is kind of the Apples and the Googles of the world restricting it? And if that is the case, how do we go about changing it? Or are we kind of dead on arrival until these large companies decide to give us permission to play on mobile?
I think in some, for some use cases, yes. For anything that involves creators, or like the creator economy for Web3 hasn't happened on mobile yet. And it hasn't happened for Web2 either. It's just, there's a standstill right now that hasn't been solved between Apple and Google and the rest of the community. And so I think if you look at MetaMask or Rainbow or other mobile products, they are enabling like the ability to swap assets, or, very simply like trade. That's available. I think though, beyond kind of those simple transactional use cases, we just haven't seen a lot of mobile experimentation yet. And so in terms of how to change Apple and Google, the sad reality is I don't think there's a way to do that other than to create enough coordination amongst like the properties that matter most. We're seeing that with Web2 Match and other properties coming together to push back against the App Store fees. When you looked at our P&L at Tinder, it was just amazing. We had like 55% gross margins, and 30% of those margins were paid to Apple and Google. So they were just completely, I thought, taking advantage of our company and our dominance to create this tax that has taken us. I'm no longer at the company, but there's still like this is still a fight that you read about every day in the news.
Totally. And so talk a little bit about, do you see a version of the world soon where we have a Web3 version of Tinder, a Web3 version of Discord, basically a Web3 version of these? Is it going to be kind of skeuomorphic? Is it going to look something radically different? Besides the idea that you can transpose your data across platform, how should we think about, in those different use cases, what Web3 uniquely enables?
Yeah, I get pitched the Tinder for dating, dating for crypto use case all the time. And probably like the most unique area to explore there would be reputation and kind of like behavior more than ownership or like anything financial. I think obviously Tinder has had its fair share of kind of like more public incidents where behavior is a huge topic and you want to create a safe environment for everybody to meet online in real life. So I think adding some layer of reputation, it was really hard at Tinder to do that because we had so many people who would sign up for Tinder dozens of times from obviously different email addresses. Like there was no single way to verify any form of identity that really, at least when I was there, that we could rely upon. So I think that's pretty interesting. The tough thing with all this is just like the products are still so hard to use. And when you look at, I guess when you talk to people outside of crypto about these use cases, they just really don't seem to grok it very quickly. And most people join Tinder with a simple goal of meeting someone either for a casual relationship or a serious relationship. Like it's a very like they're not thinking about these long-term issues that the community has to deal with. It's more of the company trying to grapple with that. So I think all of this comes down to like, how do we abstract away the crypto pieces to just create a different user experience that would not be possible in Web 2. And those are the things that I think people try and map Web3 products to Web 2 way too literally. How many Web3 Twitter examples do we have to see to know that like people don't want a Web3 version of Twitter? Like Twitter has kind of won that format. And so we have to think more creatively around different utility or formats that crypto might enable. The Discord example is interesting because everybody, like Web3 for being so decentralized as a community in terms of what the ethos is, like we're still using Web2 products as the backbone of community building, whether it's Twitter or Discord. And Discord's a product that I think we all agree doesn't quite work for crypto yet, because there's and we can go into that, but I'm seeing a lot of attempts to do so. It's just like, how do you convince a community manager when they're creating their community is just trying to think like, how do I not completely screw up this decision? Because once you have a community, it's really hard to migrate. And so, I think that will take a few kind of tentpole DAOs or crypto communities to move over to something new where that becomes like socially acceptable. I don't know if that's going to happen anytime soon, but I know there's a lot of talented people trying to build new Discords.
And if you close your eyes for a second, fast forward, maybe it's 5 years, maybe it's 10 years. What do you think this looks like? Do you think people are consciously saying, I'm now interacting with crypto or Web3 or something in that realm? Or I need to go join this community? Or do you think it's almost similar to Web 2 or just kind of integrated into Web 1 and you slowly morphed over time?
I think it's more of the slower example where you have this Web 2.5 world that we live in and we have to be okay with. And you have like progressive crypto nativity amongst users, where you allow on-ramps that don't force crypto ideals onto anybody, but you give people that option to go further down the decentralization path if they choose to do so. But like one really simple example is Dapper Labs with NBA Top Shots on day one. They did not allow you to take self-custody of your assets. You could pay with your credit card. And these were things that actually like offended people in crypto. Like I was in Telegram chats where I would bring up how these were like really important product decisions that I thought were incredibly smart, and people would like flame me out of the chats. And it's not because I don't believe in decentralization. It's that I don't believe that most people care enough to enforce those rules on users on day one. I think the more people we can get into crypto through different, more mainstream applications, the better, and that people will choose to go down that path if they kind of appreciate what crypto can do. But these are things that are hard to say online. And if you say that you're like a Web 2.5 investor, you just look like you're in no man's land. But I think we have to become okay with this, especially as we're still so early.
What do you think are going to be the first use cases that really get crypto or Web3 in orders of magnitude more people who are not engaged today?
Yeah, I think the common kind of use case that everyone points to, I'd be curious what you all think is gaming, being there's 1.5 billion gamers in the world, and within crypto, I think the top gaming networks still have like 100,000 to 1 million active users. And so we haven't quite found that breakthrough moment within gaming. Beyond gaming, I think potentially could be something that the government provides or imposes that kind of force the entire population to interact with crypto in some way. I don't think that will happen anytime soon, but it feels like there either has to be, like, if you look at what people do online, mostly it's a combination of gaming, consuming media, and social. And so I would think that gaming would have a pretty good chance of doing so, but I truly don't think there's going to be like one bullet here. I just think this is going to be like something that gradually happens over time, and we've seen some of that this year. That said, there's still only, if you look at OpenSea's data, there's still only about 500,000 monthly active traders, and so if you think about the scale that we think we're living within within NFTs or anything else, I think MetaMask has 26 million monthly active wallets. There's been 180 million wallets created to date, and so we're still really, really early. It's hard to grok that, I think, because the transaction volume per user is just so much greater than anything we've seen in Web 2.
I don't know if you know this, Jeff. I used to work at Zynga for many years back in the day. So definitely appreciate the gaming side. I'm a huge believer that gaming is a great mechanism to bring people onto a new platform. When I personally played Axie Infinity or StepN or any of these broader reach games in Web3, though, the reaction that I've had as a player and consumer of these games has been, they're not really games. They feel a lot more like speculation-driven apps that happen to have the front end of a pretend gaming platform, but it's really just people mashing buttons and then hoping that the NFT that they own or they want will go up in value. So my question for you is, do you think gaming still has a way to go before we even start to touch the beginning of it? And the underlying question there is, how do we move away from this pure speculation model where people are only playing these games to speculate as opposed to playing them because they genuinely get enjoyment and fun and social interactivity out of it?
I think we have ways to go, and maybe the games in crypto won't be AAA games in the near term. Like there'll be products like StepN that gamify kind of everyday behaviors, but don't require the development time and production levels that you'd expect in traditional gaming. I've seen a lot of casual gaming pitches that have Player models or similar models. For me, those just aren't very inspiring. I think if you live through the early days of Zynga, I think Flappy Bird's good example. Like like those are really exciting moments in time, and they definitely capture public interest in a really profound way. But in terms of being a venture investor and having more kind of like of a 10-year horizon, it's hard to imagine those being sustainable gaming communities that persevere and become large public companies. So yeah, for me, when I picture gaming, my first summer internship was I was a bug tester at EA, and there was like,
That's a tough role to be in.
oh, I was doing mobile bug testing before there were iPhones. So if you found a bug, you had to then play the game until you reach the same level and replicate the bug and then film it with another phone. It was the shittiest job you can imagine. But
now I just want to know what game you were testing. Oh my God. You must be either really good at it or terrible.
Oh, you get really good, but it like desensitizes you to every aspect of gaming. I didn't last very long. But just seeing them, like if you've worked at a gaming studio in Grand, like I was literally as close to being an intern as you can imagine. The quality of production and the amount of capital and time required to make a great AAA game is so hard to understand. It's these are huge campuses of the world's best storytellers and game creators who are trying to get, and their odds of creating a great game are like very like movie studio level percentage hits. Like you'll have so many flops before you get a hit, and so yeah, it's hard to predict like what title this will be, but I just know, having worked very briefly and having a lot of friends who work in traditional gaming, that there's a lot of on the studio side, there's a lot of skepticism to overcome, and on the product side, I think within crypto we don't have a full appreciation for the level of talent required to create just a really outstanding game.
Yeah. I want to do a thought experiment with you, which is let's say that we were looking at every big, Web2 consumer company. We mentioned, Tinder, Discord, but even things like, Airbnb and Uber and Patreon and I don't know, all types of Web2 consumer companies. And we were saying, okay, what would a Web3 native version look like that wasn't just a direct copy? My question is, what are sort of the primitives that we would, the unique Web3 primitives that we would like go through to see like, hey, can something creative be done here? And just to take a stab at it, there's the data angle, which you transport your data. There's obviously the money or unlock liquidity or price discrimination, or, do with the tokens and also an NFT angle. There's the governance perspective in terms of, expanded, making it easier to expand governance rights or experiment with governance rights and what that enables. And then, things like identity verification that you mentioned earlier in terms of reputation and Tinder. What else would you add or edit to sort of the Web3 primitives that we would look through every Web2 company and say, hey, is there some unlock here because of this primitive?
Yeah, I think you touched on so many things. The one I think people care most about are ownership and financial rewards. And so I tend to think that governance won't matter that much. Probably a small percentage of people really would care to participate in governance. Probably the same people who actually like email customer support to report bugs. The ownership model, I think, is where you start. And then you ask yourself, I think, in a world where users own the network, like what incentives might change and what behavior might change. I've seen a ton of Web3 for like Reddit for Web3 pitches. And that's really that's been a hard one. If like we can just thought experiment there, where like the model is obviously rewards the most engaged users, but imagine a world where every conversation you have online, the background motivation and question is like, is this user engaging because they want to earn money? And it creates really awkward dynamics. It's like the difference between I'm sure you've like been approached to like expert networks, right? Where you get paid to do a phone call with somebody. Like how much does that change a conversation? Whereas if you just like, because you're a kind, like, I guess like human who gives back to the world, agrees to do that same call. Whenever there's financial financial rewards at play, it just changes everything. So I've been kind of curious, but also skeptical that we're going to see like a clone of Reddit or of Twitter. I think probably the Discord use case will be solved at some point, but I'd be curious what you all think. But I think money changes. It's like more money, more problems for product designers. If you have more money in your ecosystem for any social product, it probably creates a lot more product design problems for you.
Well, and the incentives totally change, right? Like similar to the point earlier we made around speculation. Suddenly the question goes from, hey, I want to actually contribute interesting or thoughtful things to how do I maximize revenue, right? How do I make the most money on this? And if you look at the evolution, I think, of media and news, why did we shift to this world of these clickbait headlines? Well, suddenly people realize that every additional click I got to my BuzzFeed article delivered me as the author an extra dollar or X cents or some small amount of money. And the quality that we as consumers started to receive in terms of media and content started to decrease because of that. So I guess one of the core questions is, how do we maintain that high quality bar and the desire to put out things that might not deliver the highest ROI? Or how do we change the incentives so that the higher quality does get you a higher ROI? Do you have any thoughts around that, or how do we solve that?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. I'd have to really think about the actual network design more, but I think at a base level, having those rewards be less automated and more curated by the community, so it's not an algorithm that people are trying to game, which I think we've seen in play to earn. Like these have just become really unemotional users who are there strictly to earn yield, and as a result, you have a non-sustainable ecosystem. And so I think you still have to start with the core user and ask yourself, how do you encourage them to contribute to the community in a way that doesn't take advantage of the financial aspects that might be exciting.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I'm curious how you mentioned earlier that the governance isn't going to be as important, perhaps. I'm curious where your head at is in terms of DAOs at the moment, in terms of what you're seeing, what we're learning about that experiment, where we expect that to go. What's your perspective on it at the moment?
I haven't articulated this, but I think probably my best answer is we've put too much pressure on DAOs to become the replacement for every organization in the world. And DAOs, my favorite DAOs and the DAOs that I think are doing the best are more playful and less driven by the prospect of raising capital from venture capitalists. They're just fun experiments. DAOs right now I think have a lot of challenges around some around coordination, just actual how do you coordinate a group of core contributors who I'm on ENS meta governance, and I work with many different DAOs, but a real simple human challenge is how do you get people in 5 different time zones across the world on a phone call to make decisions that can't be voted on Snapshot, which happens often. There's just hard human coordination challenges. And then I think in terms of voting, a lot of DAO participation on voting is less than 1% was the number I saw recently. And so you have, and obviously you can solve some of that through delegation, but most of the community, we all have really busy lives, and people often just want to show up and have fun. And within a DAO, I think we're putting a lot of pressure on people to be end users plus politicians of the protocols, and often making decisions relative to kind of building your treasury, or we're asking people to be full-time contributors in many cases to things that are just fun thought experiments. And so I'm kind of hoping that the DAO, there's this thought that DAOs were going to be the new NFT kind of breakout hit in 2022. And I'd be really happy if it just kind of cooled down and people went back to having fun. And so that's, and there's obviously like we see a ton of DAO tooling in Web3 and crypto. I think that space has just become obviously will be very valuable, but has probably been overbuilt in the near term relative to where the ecosystem is. So I kind of think a lot of the DAO tooling companies, like maybe they should be DAOs themselves and just go do like fun DAO experiments and then build the tools kind of organically. But yeah,
that's interesting. Where else are you excited to invest at the moment, or to the extent that you have requests for startups, or where do you want people to build, or where are you looking to fund?
Yeah, I think we're really we are excited about Web3 social, and Lens Protocol is one example of an ecosystem that we're excited about. So all of these ideas around kind of inverting business models or community models for Web3 use cases, like we're really excited. We're spending a lot of time right now just thinking more in terms of ecosystems as opposed to use cases. So like I've spent a ton of time in the Starknet ecosystem, just getting to know that community. And so we're spending a lot of time in Starknet. We're excited about Layer 0. But yeah, we're spending, I think at our core, like we're seeing more as a consumer fund. So we want to help Web3 social succeed. It's not entirely obvious to us how that might happen. And so it's actually hard to do thought experiments like this, because there's so much that needs to happen before I think Web3 social takes off. But it is a pretty fun topic.
How do you think about, with these areas you're interested in investing in, how do the current crypto markets affect that, right? If we rewind a few weeks, a few months, right? Prices were sky high, they've come down, corrected, maybe they'll go down more, maybe it'll take years to build back up. How does that affect how you think about investing, both in terms of are you investing as frequently and as fast, but then also valuations that you're seeing and valuations that we might have seen before, and how you think crypto valuations pair with Web2 more traditional valuations?
Yeah, we haven't seen a big correction in valuations within seed stage crypto yet. I'd imagine that will happen soon. We are seeing obviously a big slowdown at the A and the B and beyond. So what we are seeing is we're seeing a lot of founders who go to market for a bigger seed raise kind of come back with modified expectations like 2 weeks later, which is just a tough kind of reality check, but something we're all kind of thinking about right now. In terms of kind of what is helpful for us right now is we've spent a lot of time going back and looking at where later stage investors have spent time in previous bull and bear markets within crypto. Like what are later stage investors investing by vertical in the past, and a lot of that's been crypto, financial services, or trading and brokerages. Like we've seen a few categories, NFTs and gaming more recently. But we're trying to, because as a seed investor, you want to be really creative with how you invest, but you also have to be like, part of your job is being mindful of what people upstream will invest in, because ultimately like your companies need to invest more capital to keep going. And so we're placing more of an emphasis on understanding like actual business models in crypto, which I think like 2021, like we love good vibes. We love vibes. Like who doesn't like vibes? But there was just there was a lot of like vibes investing going on. And I think what's happening now is like people are having to like stop and really ask themselves like what's sustainable and like where does actually like business value accrue in these projects. So it's not all vibes, and there's like some real company building happening too.
Oh, totally. You're such a party pooper, Jeff.
No, I think it's just like a moment in time, right, where we've just seen this across the board. Like there was like this idea that at the seed stage, like don't ask about business model, because like that's just like an outdated way of investing, or like why are you asking that? Like we'll just build the biggest network. And I think I worked on revenue teams for 4 or 5 years at Tinder, and it's really helpful to know how you're going to make money. And when you start making money as a business, it unlocks so many more things for the company that that are valuable. And so I don't know how we got to the point as a community. This is beyond crypto, where like trying to figure out your business model is a bad thing. I actually think like that's a really fair question for a pre-seed founder. Is like how do you plan to make money? And if like that's a filtering question for like who you want to work with. And it's not all about money, because like obviously like we want to do a lot more in terms of building companies that kind of like do interesting things in the world. But at this moment in time, like everyone needs to be able to answer that question. And if you can't answer that question, like, and people give you money, then you should ask them, why are they giving you money if they didn't ask you how you're gonna make money? It's just like these are where corrections I think are really useful and help reset kind of the whole ecosystem. And again, I'm not talking about crypto. I'm talking about tech in general. Like things needed to change.
Yeah. Well, share some of your expertise in terms of, so a lot of, Web3 founders are often, but not always, of course, but younger or less experienced or haven't worked on a ton of other, things that have made money before. And they will say an answer like, hey, build the biggest network possible. Like, how should they be thinking about it? Like, how should someone who's just been focused on vibes or community be thinking about, okay, like what are the different options in terms of, Web3 kind of native revenue models, or what are networks that are more likely to capture value than not, or like shed a little bit of light on how founders should think about that?
For sure. I think the beauty of crypto, if you are thinking about business models, is it's actually like the most financially based ecosystem you could ever build in. And this applies to every vertical within crypto. So, I think if you're building a marketplace, it's pretty straightforward, whether it's like pure, just like our NFTs or within gaming or anything else. Like that business model is so clear for the marketplace and the creator, which I think is really interesting. I mean, you look at the amount of dollars that have flowed to creators, whether it's in music or anything else, and it actually is way superior to Web2. So, and then I think in terms of trading, like it's pretty obvious. You see what's happened within Uniswap. They've enabled swaps within the wallet on the web. As I think last year they did over $60 million in revenue just on one product they added really quickly. And so we've also created this environment where digital assets are kind of the foundation of crypto. And so the business model should be pretty easy to build. I think the broader question is just like, can the networks become big enough? But despite Web3 being open and all of the data being on chain and portable, and this idea that you can no longer win on kind of like owning the user, there still appears to be really dominant marketplaces that are hard to unseat. And so I guess the question becomes like, we have dominant players, like OpenSea being one example. Like if you were building an NFT marketplace, like how would you go about competing with a big dominant player? Would you verticalize your marketplace? Would you build for another chain? And we've seen examples of this with wallets, with obviously Phantom becoming such a fast player within the Solana ecosystem. I think that's probably less applicable now, but yeah, I think it goes back to the basics of distribution and monetization. Like for all that's changed, like things are kind of in some ways like very foundationally similar. And so within crypto, though, if you're a founder, it's actually like way easier to monetize than Web2, I'd say, unless, with the exception being I think subscriptions. I still think subscriptions are just such a great business model. I actually think subscriptions have similar community alignment minus the ownership, where you have to keep building great products for people to stay on your network.
That makes a lot of sense. I want to zoom out and maybe gear towards closing with where we began around building a crypto firm or Web3 firm, because I'm sure there are lots of other firms and people out there who are saying, hey, do I go hybrid? Do I go all in? What does that mean? And you went all in. Talk about what are the trade-offs of or kind of you mentioned the pros are, hey, basically it's table stakes. If people want to raise from crypto native firms, unless you're already some mega player. And so, it's table stakes in some ways to participate in terms of having the knowledge, the credibility, et cetera. What are the trade-offs? Are there now deals that you wish you could do that you can't do? And so do you have to structure your fund in a different way? Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I think the trade-offs are fundraising is like a much different audience. So I was at Capital Camp in Columbia, Missouri yesterday. I got back last night, and I can tell you at Capital Camp, I was one of like maybe 5 or 10 people who work full-time in crypto, and you still have like an education curve when pitching LPs or when kind of trying to explain crypto to a non-crypto audience, which I think can be a challenge if you don't have a track record in the space. Beyond that, I think if you're doing hybrid investing and you've built, I guess, like a great network outside of crypto, you are kind of saying in some ways like you're still friends with those people on a personal level, but you're kind of moving into a different world where those relationships are probably no longer as professionally valuable. And so you have to, you're basically saying goodbye to a lot of people who you probably used to work with. And I think you just have to, you have to live with one vertical's ups and downs. And so within crypto, entering a bear market, like if you enter a bear market with a new fund and your fund isn't doing well in that time period, like maybe your fund is in a tough position to raise the next fund. A lot of crypto funds time their fundraising really well, where they fundraise in like Q4 of 21, which is probably, if you're a crypto fund, like the single best time in the moment in the history of time to raise a crypto fund. And so now it'll be interesting to see, as LPs, a lot of them now have some crypto exposure, like how do you break through as a newer fund to convince LPs that you're worth hedging against those more kind of like mega fund franchise brands that they're doing to get exposure in kind of a safer way. So there's a lot of different trade-offs, and I also wouldn't say, I guess to clarify my statement, I think you can still invest in crypto if you're not a crypto only fund. It's just like, will you be the lead investor in deals? Like the best deals probably harder, but I wouldn't discourage people who aren't full-time crypto from participating. And one thing I haven't loved about crypto in the past is like this feeling that we should want more people, investors and users, to come to crypto. And so if anybody wants to explore crypto, like I think like everybody should be spending some amount of time here, because it's interesting. And even if you don't agree with crypto being like the end all future of the internet, it's big enough at this point that you should kind of like become smarter about what's going on here.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. And then lastly, and this is not specific to Web3, but necessarily, but it's a question a lot of firms think about, especially people who start out as solo GPs, is talk about when you made the decision of, hey, it's not just going to be me anymore. I'm going to really grow this team out. And the way that you were doing it, you're kind of going, all out, building a whole platform team, et cetera, that not all funds your size have. Talk about that evolution from one side of the spectrum to the other side.
Yeah, I think this solo GP path is really, obviously, like it was a huge topic starting in 2019, I'd say. The path for a solo GP is very different for a lot of reasons. I guess one, probably what I felt the most was just, I was really feeling like I was spread very thin as not only as an investor, but just as like a person. Like I kind of got to the end of fund one. I was like, holy shit, if I did that again, like I literally think I'd no longer ever have any personal relationships, because it's just, the amount of work is mind-boggling. You still, building a team is a lot of work, but if you are sick one day for some reason, or you take a vacation, like you don't have like the for clothes sale on your storefront, like you have people doing things. I think probably the more interesting thing is just within venture, we're seeing the number of funds in the competition increase so much, where to truly compete as a solo GP in a long-term sustainable way, I think there are probably like 10 people in the world who can do that very well. And so I think we got to the point where raising a fund has become so much easier in terms of back office, that everybody with any reputation who had access to capital raise a fund, but the day-to-day work of like raising the fund should be the easiest part, and investing and supporting companies should be the actual hard work. And I kind of think that a lot of solo GPs will probably get to the end of fund one and realize that what they're doing with their time isn't the best use of their time, and probably more exciting would be either merging with another solo GP, which we've seen really good examples of that, or potentially building a team. And for me, I kind of was a solo GP by necessity and not by choice, where I raised fund one when I was at Tinder, like literally like nights and weekends, not even thinking twice about what the implications would be. And as I saw how just like the level of work you need to put in to really compete and be a top tier partner to founders, you can't do that as a solo GP unless you really just figure out how to have like this ghost back office that helps you with every aspect of kind of supporting those companies. So, and then I think the opportunity to build a fund right now is so interesting because, as you mentioned, like you can kind of build them like startups, and you don't have to build like all the models of building a fund in the past. You can question, and you can build the exact fund that you want to build, whether it's personalities or expertise or focus. And that to me was just really exciting. We haven't seen a ton of innovation in venture, but it kind of feels like now, especially within crypto, people are really accepting towards different structures and different ideas of how to build a venture fund.
No, that's a great note to wrap on. Jeff, for people who want to go deeper on your work and chapter one, where can you point them?
Yeah, chapter1.com, spelled as it sounds. And then I'm JMJ on Twitter, and love this podcast. It's seriously one of my favorite podcasts to listen to, and really just appreciate having the chance to be on here. So thank you.
Yeah, thanks so much, Jeff. This has been a great episode.
If you're an early stage entrepreneur, we'd love to hear from you. Check us out at villageglobal.vc.